In today's tale, we're reading more excerpts from the Elder Scrolls Online, Tales of Tamriel, Book 1, The Land. These entries detail the wavering thoughts of those aligned with the Altmerry Dominion. It also details messages from the other alliances towards the Dominion. Another entry talks briefly about Auridon of the Somerset Isles. Finally, the last few entries detail the experiences, youth, and folk tales told of Queen Ayrenn. Sit back, relax, and enjoy some stories told from the Elder Scrolls. Let it be known that what I have done here, in Elden Hollow, I do for the Altmer, though they refuse to help themselves. What follows is a memoir of sorts, for the Thalmor will no doubt feel they have been betrayed. But I am the only canon reeve working towards a greater good, towards a better existence for the Altmer. 12th of Morningstar. I have seen the numbers. The Altmerry Dominion loses hundreds of soldiers every fortnight in this accursed war, and we have a long road ahead of us. When all is finished, we will have lost an entire generation of Altmer. Teachers, scholars, and mages march off to a fiery death, and the Thalmor are happy to give them up. It's heinous. I can understand that the Khajiit leaders, with less than 5 of their number in the Thalmor, and the Bosmeri Tree Thanes would be eager to offer Altmerry blood to end this conflict. But my fellow canon reeves are equally willing, and I cannot abide by it. 8th of Mid-Year. Months have passed, and the Thalmor continue to pass Altmerry youth through the Dominion war machine like they're an inexhaustible resource. We possess the greatest military minds in Tamriel, and all we can do is tear our best and brightest from their lives to fight like savages in far-off lands. 9th of Last Seed. I was a fiery mage in my youth, and I've retained a lesson or two since then. If I cannot get support from the Thalmor to bring a more expedient end to this war, then I will bring about the end for them. Part 2. 11th of Frostfall. My career as a mage ended abruptly when I realized the manipulation of people and policy was infinitely more satisfying than collecting animal feces to spark a fire. However, I am forced to admit that perhaps Orinith the Master Wizard could end this war much more quickly than the Canon Reeve Orinith is able to. 23rd of Sun's Dusk. I can think of 100 ways to finish this war, none of which a mage of my stature could accomplish. The guilds offer no solace. I saw that grinning fool Bakara again. At least I believe she was grinning. I can never tell with the Khajiit. I have but one recourse. Part 3. 1st of Morningstar. The pact is made. I fear even my ancestors would frown on me, or hunt me in the streets for this. I do not doubt the Thalmor will be displeased, but it is necessary. I have taken a sabbatical from my position as canon reeve these last months in my effort to conclude this war, but I have been reviewing the field reports. This conflict is claiming double the Altmerry lives as were being lost when I embarked on my journey. The choice I have made was the correct one. My new master, and the army he has promised, will ensure this war is finished before the year's end. A Warning to the Altmerry Dominion by Aristera Ligon. The overlords of the Altmerry Dominion are hereby put on notice. Renounce your ambitions of aggression and return to your islands and jungles, or the wrath of the Daggerfall Covenant shall fall upon you like a hammer of the divines. We are all well aware that the Altmerry plan nothing less than a return to the elven domination of the other races, particularly men and orcs. They wish to overturn the legacies of the First and Second Empires and wipe them from history. This we shall not allow. Never again will free men and orcs submit to the tyranny of elven oppression. The arrogant high elves of Somerset are clearly the driving force behind the Dominion. We of the Covenant have shown, through our acceptance of the Direni, that we can live with the elves in peace. But Queen Ayrenn insists on war. Her invasion of the continent of Tamriel is nothing but naked aggression. The Dominion has no territorial rights in Cyrodiil. If the Altmer do not return to Somerset, their invading armies will be destroyed. The Wood Elves and the Khajiit have traded with our Ilek Bay kingdoms for ages, but they've made a mistake in allying themselves with the perfidious Altmer of Somerset. Though we of the Covenant wish them no ill will, if they maintain their alliance with the Dominion, they will suffer the same fate at our hands as the High Elves. They must reconsider, or they must face our wrath. Auridon Explored. Chapter 1. Gentle reader, welcome. Welcome to the crystal blue waters and gentle zephyrs of Auridon. jewel of the Somerset archipelago and gateway to Tamriel, this fair isle has been long home to the friendliest, the most outward-facing of my noble race. Herein, I've included an unedited journal of observations, thoughts jotted down during my most recent trip across the isle, some of the hidden gems of the isle, some of the most striking locales of this sheltered paradise will see description in these pages. From L, your humble guide. Enjoy. Fenlil the Wayfarer. Chapter 2. They stare, looking into my soul. Their little eyes, their furry bodies. I can't imagine a more terrifying sight. Do not believe the tales. Those monkeys hate our intrusion into their home. Chapter 3. Ah, fair Arenor Isle. A part of the Baranum Sea Complex during the time of the Ancients, and then long used as a shipping and warehouse complex by nearby Skywatch. Then came the Slode, disease, and death. Even in the aftermath of Skywatch's defiance, Slode forces held the island for decades. When it was finally cleansed by a concerted force, a remnant of the All Flags Navy, it was left to rot and decay. A shame, as its natural beauty is extreme and its ruins magnificent. Chapter 4. This island is fascinating. It was clearly once a hub for the ancient Altmer, perhaps part of a larger structure that extended out into the sea. Now it's used most often as a retreat from the city life in nearby Skywatch. I've found some evidence here that resurgent Daedric cults, the Worm Cultists, are making preparations to construct some kind of dolmen here. I'll have to warn the local authorities in Skywatch. Chapter 5. Gentle reader, I feel the need to edit my unedited thoughts about the beautiful, unparalleled Isle of Contemplation. Without a doubt, one of the most beautiful places on Tamriel, your fair explorer has many happy memories of quiet meals, meaningful looks, moonlit encounters. As I said, my time on the Isle of Contemplation has been magical. I hope yours is the same. Chapter 7. The ruin known by locals as High Tide Keep was once a sprawling complex of defensive fortifications. A relic from the time of the ancients, it was painstakingly maintained and manned. As a result, Skywatch was able to put up an incredible defense during the slowed attack on the city. Powerful magical constructs were crafted and expended. Dozens of slowed warships were destroyed. The city finally fell when a slowed warcaster filled his voluminous gullet with volatile alchemical reagents and threw himself at the base of the cliffs. The resulting explosion toppled much of the extended rock face and plunged the ruins into the sea. Chapter 12. Yes, for some reason it skips to Chapter 12. I'm often asked when the ancients first arrived in the archipelago. My researches indicate that it was in the middle of the early Merethic period. The farthest northern trip of Auridon, now called Nine Prows Landing, is by tradition the first place within the Somerset Isles to feel the tread of the ancients. From Somerset, the ancients spread to the shores of Tamriel, settling almost every region of that great, contentious continent. There, they built new societies and found both glory and destruction. The Rise of Queen Ayrenn, by Nulitel of Skywatch. Loyal citizens of Auridon, I have the pleasure of being an advisor to Her Royal Majesty, Queen Ayrenn I, Eagle Primarch of the Altmeri Dominion, High Queen of the Somerset Isles, Overfriend of the Royal Cameron House of the Wood Elven People, and boon companion to the Mane of the Khajiit. As Royal Advisor, I have penned this brief account of Queen Ayrenn's life and history. Read that you might welcome our Queen into your hearts. Her Majesty spent early days as many children do in the Isles. She trained in blades beside her father. She rode horses in the surf along our golden beaches and memorized history and sonnets beneath soft pink petals. Over 20 years ago, your forward-thinking King His Royal Majesty King Hidalith of Alinor, may he ever be honored in Aetherius, gathered with the royal family at the Crystal Tower in celebration of Her Majesty's passage into the Labyrinth. This time of intensive study had been required by all Somerset rulers in the past, and Her Majesty was to step into that period with arms wide. As the hour approached, however, the then princess was found missing. While a long search was begun, in truth, Her Majesty had claimed her own destiny. Her Majesty had stolen away to the island of Balfira to live with the Dureni at the Adamant Tower. The members of that clan trained her in the art of war. They turned her simple noble swordplay to lithe and seasoned blade dancing. her beachside rides became forced marches on horseback, and her singing of sonnets beneath the trees of her homeland gave way to the study of the arts most arcane. Much has been made of our queen's adventures in Tamriel by both bards and common broadsheet scribes. Yes, it's true that she once rode a bear, that she hunted the frost trolls of Skyrim, delved into the depths of a dwarven ruin, and crewed with a pirate captain of Cyrodiil. Her Majesty once flew upon an enormous kite on the winds of the Alakir Desert, and danced with the Nereids in the Ilisan Hills. These adventures were not the larks of a wanton, but instead a deliberate process, the tempering of a blade. And when His Majesty King Hidalith passed away, when it looked as though our remote isles would be left to flounder in the swell of history, Princess Ayrenn returned. Her Majesty plucked the crown from where it had fallen in the dust. She took up her father's sword and led us out into the world. Led us into the world to find new allies waiting just off our shores. The Queen's connections to the noble Wood Elves and fierce Khajiit enabled us to form the mighty dominion that now stands astride our corner of Tamriel, poised to strike at the dark heart of Cyrodiil and ward off the depredations of the warmongering alliances of the north. Though she has her detractors and cowards defame her courage from behind a veil, Queen Ayrenn is the living, beating heart of the Dominion. Our fortune and prosperity depend upon her. Ayrenn, the Unforeseen Queen, by Headmaster Tanyan of the College of Aldmeri Propriety. Some of our Bosmeri and Khajiiti students have come under a misapprehension, repeating the canon that not all the Altmer of Somerset are united behind our glorious Queen Ayrenn. Nothing could be further from the truth. We High Elves have a penchant for witticisms and wordplay that can sometimes be misinterpreted by those newly exposed to our ancient and refined culture. To set the matter straight, I've assembled this brief introduction to our beloved Queen of Alinor, intending to tell her story in a simple, direct fashion that can be understood even by our new allies in the Altmeri Dominion. The Altmer, of course, are descended in an unbroken line from the divines who created Nirn, and none more so than the royal family of Alinor. Aeryn's father, King Hidalith of august memory, ruled these Somerset Isles long and well, and exemplified the best traditions of elven ceremoniarchy, basing his every decision on the precedents laid down in the Scrolls of Praxis. In due time, as ordained by the Scrolls, King Hidalith and his wife Kinlady Tuendin conceived a child, who was named Ayrenn as the Praxis dictated. Princess Ayrenn was born on the 5th of 2nd Seed in the year 555 of the Second Era, a very auspicious date, though I will spare you the reasons why, as you lack the context to comprehend its full significance. However, you can believe me when I tell you all Somerset, Auridon, and Artaeum celebrated her birth for 55 days. It was foretold that Princess Ayrenn would reflect the restless and turbulent times in which she was born, and so it came to pass. Nimble and quick-witted, she was quick to master the lessons of her tutors, and from an early age, often adopted unorthodox approaches to schoolwork. In fact, she sometimes became so engrossed in her independent studies that her whereabouts were unknown for days at a time. She would often return from these field trips with unusual knowledge and display remarkable new skills. One day, in Evening Star of the year 573, the entire royal family of Alinor gathered at the Crystal Tower to celebrate Aeryn's matriculation to the Sapiarch's Labyrinth, where she was to study Altmeri regal praxis and ceremoniarchy for the requisite 3,555 days. But Ayrenn didn't arrive. Somewhere between the palace and tower, the princess disappeared, and despite a 17th degree inquiry by the justiciaries, she was nowhere to be found. The Sapiarchs, however, reported that the night of her disappearance was filled with signs and portents, the constellation of the Lady seeming to ride the constellation of the Steed. The great orrery spun backward, and a young eaglet was found atop the statue of Topol the Explorer. In due course, Prince Naaman, Aeryn's brother, was named heir to the throne of Alinor, and in 575, he matriculated into the Labyrinth. Naaman, like his father, was a natural ceremoniarch who seemed to have a genuine relish for the rites and duties ordained by tradition for the heir. Indeed, when King Hidalith ascended to Aetherius in the year 580, Prince Naaman immediately began preparing to speak the 88-day coronation liturgy that would elevate him to the throne in his father's place. Then, on a day unheralded, the unforeseen occurred. word came from Port Velen on the continent that Princess Ayrenn was on her way to Auridon by swan ship. In wonder and haste, the court of Alinor took itself to first hold to greet her, arriving just in time to welcome her unexpected return. Princess Ayrenn announced that she was prepared as the eldest heir to assume the throne of Alinor, and the High Justiciar affirmed that such was indeed her right. She was crowned Queen Ayrenn on the 7th of Frostfall in the year 580. Since assuming the throne, she has brought some innovations to the rule of our land, but this is as foretold at the time of her auspicious birth, and the Sapiarchs, one and all, have endorsed her modernizations. So you see, students, Ayrenn is undisputed queen of these isles, and all is right and proper as it should be. Thus wraps up today's entry from the Tales of Tamriel. We learned a little bit more about the Somerset Isles, Queen Ayrenn, and the Altmerry Dominion. Until next time, keep on adventuring.